Consciousness is known to be one of the most mystical phenomena regarding the human nature. The question of consciousness is so important that in every culture throughout the course of history, many answers have been provided for it. We are now here to explore this concept through the lens of science, and maybe we can have a better understanding of what is going on in the whole conversation around consciousness. Okay, consciousness. I avoided getting into this topic whenever possible when I was studying for my bachelor's degree. It is vague, there is a lot of myth and mystery around it, and I used to think that this is a matter of philosophy and religion to talk about it. I used to think like a radical behavioralist, but the hard work is inevitable. I realized that if I want to understand the human nature, I must try my best to understand the consciousness. As far as I can tell you, consciousness is one of the most regarded psychology-related or mind-related concepts in the history of mankind. You can think of history of consciousness as humanity repeatedly exploring 8 core questions, with each culture adding its own metaphors, mechanisms, and meanings to the discussion. In this video, I am going through each question, exploring how different cultures gave different answers for each one, and how today's cognitive psychology and neuroscience is explaining them. Let's start our journey with the states of awareness. We are not equally aware in different occasions. Sleep, dream, trance state of awareness, or any other occasion that you can think of. The question is clear here. Why isn't human awareness constant? And what happens to consciousness when it shifts? Ancient cultures like Egypt, Mesopotamia, shamanic traditions believed that dreams are messages from gods or the dead. And trance state or possession is the entrance of a spirit to us, or our souls going to travel outside. They thought consciousness is not materialistic and not necessarily internal. Instead, they thought it is heavily under the influence of spirits or divine forces. Indian traditions think differently. They saw dreaming as metaphors or signs of different layers of the self. And also states of awareness are classified in Indian traditions: waking, dreaming, deep sleep, and pure consciousness. In Indian traditions, meditation is a tool for refinement of awareness toward clarity or selflessness. Just a reminder here, I am not an expert on any of these cultural heritages. I am just reviewing what I learned exploring for the concept of consciousness. So feel free to correct me whenever you think I have misunderstood anything in the comment section. Greek philosophers had a variety of thoughts on this matter. The early ones saw dreams as prophetic experiences, but Plato saw dreams as insights from irrational soul thoughts. Aristotle believed dreams to be physiological after effects of the impressions that we have in our awake time. Well, that can be taken as early trials to see mankind as a natural materialistic being. Well, Abrahamic religions like Christianity, Judaism, and Islam believe that dreams are divine messages, moral instructions, and visions, and prophets are the people whose consciousness becomes receptive to God. Here psychology comes in. Psychoanalytics believe that dreams are the royal road to the unconscious, and the things we see at our dreams are the request materials taking symbolic forms. You see what I mean when I say it's mystical and vague? What do you mean by that? Anyway, the beautiful cognitive psychology has other things to offer. Sleep has different stages, and they are distinct cognitive modes responsible for different tasks. Dreaming has different functions too: memory consolidation, scenario simulation, and emotional regulation. And trance and flow states are simply the reconfiguration of our neural network, activation and suppression of different regions and different networks of the brain. For example, in meditation, the brain reduces mind wandering to its default mode and increases the attention network. Moving on from the states of awareness, the second question of consciousness is the layers of the mind. How much of the mind is hidden? Which processes or operations are behind awareness? Ancient cultures or early religions believed the hidden mind or the unconscious procedures to be gods or spirits or demons acting through you. This means that they genuinely thought that we have no automated skills or functions and we are acting 100% awarely, unless gods, demons, or similar concepts put their influence on us without us being aware of it. If a warrior had an adrenaline rush and fought way better than his previous battle, they would sing songs on how gods led his sword toward victory. In India, traditions took different approaches. Some said that subconscious layers of the mind are deep habitual patterns and they drive behavior unconsciously, kind of similar to how we approach it today. Others believe the unconsciousness to have seeds or prophecies of the future, or that it is sort of an ignorance clouding the consciousness. In Greek, Plato said that irrational parts of the soul can influence our actions without rational awareness. Adding to that, the Stoics believed that subconscious impressions are behind emotions. At this point, medieval Christian and Islamic thoughts come in to define unconscious impulses as passions or temptations that the rational soul must regulate. And they moralize the duality of the flesh versus the spirit. But the conversation about the unconscious mind isn't a good one without mentioning Freud and psychoanalytics. This school of psychology fully developed the structure for the unconscious mind. The components that they used to explain everything with were desires, conflicts, repression, and a dynamic system making the flow of action or conscious experience. Today's psychologists and neuroscientists have taken a lot of steps in understanding the subconscious layers of the mind. Firstly, they know that most mental processes are non-conscious by default. You don't follow the flow of information in every step of perception. The same thing can be said about the stress cycle or many other mental processes. But instead of seeing these procedures symbolically or spiritually, they choose to see these unconscious activities as functions or computations, like biases, associations, automatic processes, or different kinds of learning. In this way, we can have a more detailed and practical understanding of mental processes, which is also more realistic. Now let's talk a bit about a more abstract concept. The third question of the consciousness is about selfhood. I, ego, soul, the observer mind, selflessness. There is a lot going on here. What does it mean when any of us say I? Is I a real thing? Is it an illusion? Is it a function? Or is it the immortal essence of our existence? Ancient cultures usually believed that persons have a composite nature, which means that the identity is connected to the soul, which goes beyond the physical existence of a human being. Some said that the self is the pure consciousness itself. They would assume that the ultimate subject, the big I, the concept of God probably, is identical to the universal consciousness. Buddhism thought differently. It implies that there is no permanent self. The I is a constructed process, and gaining insight dissolves self-grasping, which is quite similar to today's concept of egocentrism. Greek philosophers had kind of a debate here. Plato on the one hand thought that the soul is the immortal rational entity inside each of us. On the other hand, Aristotle believed that the soul is the form or the organization of the body and is physical by nature. Christians and Muslims believe that the soul is the source of identity and is immortally tied to the moral accountability of our actions. Psychoanalytics comes in cool. Self is fragmented and has different components responsible for different things. Ego, for example, is the mediator between our drives and the reality. After psychoanalytics, each school of psychology has tried to provide a different answer. One school says that the self is the structure of experience or simply the embodied subjectivity. They think that the self has nothing metaphysical about it. Today's cognitive psychology and neuroscience has a similar mindset. Self is a network activity in the brain, and there is no region or place in the brain that we can assume to be the house of self. Instead, it's a product of the integration of many network activities of the brain. The cool thing is that this manner of modelizing the self has enabled us to predict and intervene functions of the self more than any other module. Ultimately, any of these points of view assume the self to be one of these three things: the eternal essence of our existence, an illusion or construction, a function of the body or the brain. Now let's put the self behind. You have probably heard about the flow state or deep focus, but have you ever thought what happens to consciousness at such states? The fourth question of consciousness is attention and flow. There is a very common discussion in the media today on the matter of deep work or intense focus. Here the question is that how does consciousness change during such experiences? In Greek and Roman thoughts, focused attention creates inner freedom, and contemplation lifts the mind toward truth. In yogic traditions, meditation, which is proven to be very effective on this matter, is known to be the best tool. They thought that the flow state is the doom of psychological boundaries. Chinese Taoists had their own concept of effortless action regarding this matter. And Christians and Muslims know this flow state to be important in reaching to timeless awareness. Modern psychology has a more practical statement here. The flow state is a result of the balance between the challenge and our skill levels and us narrowing our attention on the challenge in front of us. In this state, the task-relevant neural networks are enhanced and the attention-shifting networks are prohibited. If you want to see more content related to attention After watching this video, you can check this one out. I explained a lot about it. The next question of consciousness is here: intentionality versus agency. A lot of values are defined depending on the answer we give to this question. Free will, choice, meaning, responsibility. If we accept the idea of pure agency, can we punish anyone who commits a crime? How can we define the crime if we don't accept the idea of choice and responsibility? Now let's get to it. In Greek ethics, the dominant belief is that the reasoning governs the desire. So the intentional action is the one with rational control. In Abrahamic religions, intentionality is the core concept in the matter of sin versus virtue. In the great day of judgment, you are not only judged by your actions, but also with your intentions. Intention gets a bit complicated through the lens of psychoanalytics. An action that appears intentional might be driven by unconscious motives. Modern-day psychology can shock you here, so sit tight and give me your attention. The question of intentionality is well examined. This is how it works. Decisions are intended by unconscious neural processes milliseconds before conscious intention. This means that our consciousness is not where the decision is made. But hold on, this does not mean pure agency. The conscious mind still shapes, guides, and corrects our action feedback loop. The intention predicts, plans, and prepares everything necessary for the moment of action. And in the moment, the decision is made automatically. And I think it's beautiful. Everything we do, we are doing it without freedom. Freedom is in preparation. Take a challenging negotiation, for example. At the moment, our actions and reactions are automatic. Our freedom is somewhere in the past. How trained we are, how much we have learned from our previous experiences, and how much we have studied for the topic or the people we are negotiating with. This is what I took from this part. A part of us is an active, at the moment, automatic guy, and another part of us is a guy that is watching, planning, and leading the first guy. The second guy is always late and is only able to give post instructions to the first guy for future similar situations. Questions 6, 7, and 8 of the consciousness were not that interesting for me, and honestly, I did not have enough motivation to go and search for them. Mind-body relationship, collective or divine mind, and higher knowing and mystical consciousness. So I will just tell you why I didn't search for them. The mind-body relationship, I think, is clear today. With the recent findings of neuroscience and cognitive psychology, we can see that our brain and the rest of our body are capable of doing what they are doing. There is no need for something beyond the physical world to explain the things that are happening. And about the higher knowing and mystical consciousness. Come on, we are living in the 21st century. Are you still looking for these kind of things? In what fantasy world a person needs to live in order to still believe in these kind of things? And about the collective mind, there is something here. A group of people communicating with each other can create a social network, and they can act more unitedly as their bonds get tighter. Social identity or teamwork are really good examples for this case. This whole thing is studied in a field called social cognition, but this is not what most people think of the collective mind. I have seen people who would put their feet in the mud when they get sick, and they would say that the nature will cure me. Yes, the nature is trying to cure you, but not through that process. The nature will cure you with the IQ of a doctor who would give you the medical care that you need. That is the work of nature too. Anyway, that was all. We explored the 8 questions of consciousness, looking at old and new answers to them. I hope you have enjoyed it as much as I have, and don't forget to give me a thumbs up and a subscribe if you like this video. I hope to see you around. There is a lot more about cognitive psychology that we can talk about. I am Ali Amini, and see you soon.